Hey YouTube, it's Stacy and I'm back again with yet another recipe. This recipe, wow, this recipe, I'm trying not to get choked up because if I had to choose one dish that I can eat for the rest of my life, it would be my mother's spaghetti. Now, my oxtail video, I did mention that my mother did not cook Caribbean food. Let me just also point out that the only time she started to make Caribbean food was when she had grandchildren. How about that? But what I do remember most was how comforting and loving and caring she was when it came to raising myself and my brother, and also when she made her spaghetti. Now, she was a single mom, worked her ass off to make sure that she put a meal on the table. Granted, oftentimes that meal was from my grandmother, because that's what we do. We're a village, we take care of one another, and you make sure your people don't go hungry. But when my mom made her spaghetti, her spaghetti, I used to not wait for the noodles to be made. I would just sneak into the kitchen with a teacup and put some sauce in there and go hide in my room and just eat it like it was a bowl of chili. Her sauce is home to me. And so whenever I'm feeling out of sorts or the weather is cold outside and I'm cooped up and I feel like I need a nice warm hug, I turn to my mother's spaghetti sauce. So Mommy, I'm not gonna cry. Thank you for all that you do, and I hope that I honor you with this spaghetti sauce, because outside of Granny, your sauce is the best sauce ever, and I promise you, I could eat it every day. So when I come back to Montreal, I hope you have a big pot waiting for me. But until then, I'm gonna show you how I make my interpretation of Paula's sweet, loving, big pot of spaghetti. It's one big mix up. You know what I mean? You put what you have. And I hope I honor you well, Mom, because you know I'm not big on the meatballs, but you always put the meatballs in for the grandkids. And we really appreciate you for that. And I appreciate you. And I hope you enjoyed this quick video on how I make Paula's delicious, hearty spaghetti sauce. Thanks again for watching. And don't forget, God is good all the time. And all the time, God is so good. Take care. Hi guys, so here are the list of ingredients that I use to make this delicious spaghetti sauce. I began with cutting up all my vegetables, and I have used a can of whole tomatoes. You can use diced tomatoes, but I feel like if there aren't any tomatoes added to this, it just doesn't make it as hearty. And that's what my mom did, so I'm gonna stick with tradition. I have my ground beef, to which I separated to make the meatballs. And I also have some lean pork cutlets that I really, really, really love. Now, my grandmother would use whatever she had. She would put baby ribs in there, sometimes even chicken, steak, you know, whatever she had, she'd put in. So I'm gonna add that little gem to this recipe and combine both my mom and my granny's recipe together. I began with sautéing the pork after having seasoned it, and I just sautéed it for about 15 minutes, or at least until it got a nice brown and sear on it. I love to do this part because it allows for me to create additional flavors to be added to the spaghetti sauce. So once your pork has gotten to this beautiful, nice brown color and it's fried up nicely, you're going to set that aside so that you can continue with getting your meats cooked first. No particular order, to be honest with you. You can start with your vegetables or you can start with the meats. I prefer to start with the meats. So now we're on to the meatballs. I'm not a huge fan of meatballs, but I do love my mother's meatballs. I still haven't mastered how she makes hers, but even being in the kitchen, I still haven't gotten the same technique. You know, it's always different when somebody else does it and you try to do it, but there's something about her cooking hand that makes this dish special. So we're gonna get those nice and brown and move on to our vegetables. I cook these separately from the meat just because I know that the mushrooms do tend to carry water along with the spinach. A lot of water draws out from them, so I want to be able to evaporate that prior to putting it into the sauce so that the sauce doesn't become soupy. And you're going to just, fry these up in a pot or a pan until they're partially cooked. And as you see here, I have the ground beef going, and I'm getting that nice and brown and cooked thoroughly through. Once I have the mincemeat complete and the vegetables complete and nicely sautéed, I'm going to go ahead and combine the two. So here you have the vegetables and the ground beef going together. Flavors are mixing up nicely. And you'll notice there is a Scotch bonnet pepper in the mix. Yes, man, because I love me some spice. So anybody, just so you know, anybody who eats from me, be prepared to know that the food will have a kick to it. I then went ahead and added the spinach to it. And the spinach, well, like I said, the spinach and the mushrooms, they tend to draw water out of themselves. So I made sure to add the spinach last because I don't mind that it adds that additional liquid to the ground beef and the vegetables. So we're just going to allow for them to shrink up in there. And here you go. I didn't cut up my spinach. You can cut your spinach if you want to. I just threw the whole lot in after having washed them well. And I threw them in and I'm just tossing it up in there and cooking. Now this process probably takes about, I want to say, 30 minutes just to get all the meats cooked up and the vegetables sautéed and combining it together before adding the whole tomatoes, or like I said, you can put diced tomatoes. So after you add your tomatoes, you're going to mix it in and then you're going to combine all of the meats in there, the pork and the meatballs, and you're going to continue to stir and get all those flavors married together. Now my pot wasn't big enough at the time, so I had to use 2 separate pots and separate them so that I can be able to add the spaghetti sauce to this. And it was interesting when I was mixing. I was like, wait a minute, this is not going to work because it was just full of meat and sautéed vegetables. Here are the sauces that I use. I use 2 jars of spaghetti sauce, tomato and basil, and 4 cheese. My mom loves to use her Classico spaghetti sauce. Honestly, any sauce will do as long as you are following the steps to what was put inside of the sauce. Then you will have it taste like my mom's. And one major ingredient that I wrote in the description box below, but will mention here, is that my mother adds chicken or beef stock to her spaghetti sauce. She uses the powder version rather than the liquid, but it's in there. And it took years for me to get this out of her, but in the end, she finally let me know how she gets that wonderful additional flavor to her amazing sauce that I can eat every day. My children, on the other hand, not so much. So here's the pasta, here's my plate. I'm looking forward to chowing down and digging in. I love me some spaghetti sauce. I truly do. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate your time. Have a blessed day. Take care and enjoy.